Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Stickman here and welcome back to the channel. Now, today's video is pretty interesting because it's a guide for Sonic 4, and the reason why I'm making this is because Sonic 4 is still listed on the Xbox Marketplace and it's backwards compatible, so you can play it on an Xbox 360, an Xbox One, or an Xbox Series S or X, which is pretty awesome because Sonic 4 has some cool avatar awards for the Xbox 360 avatars, which I thought would be fun to go for. Now, the first award that I'm going to show you guys how to get is the Body of the Sonic costume, which is obtained after collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds and beating the final boss twice. The final stage can be found in Egg Station Zone, and it's called Final Showdown in Space. The final level is essentially a gauntlet of all 4 of the bosses that you fought in the previous zones, combined with the Death Egg robot at the end. Grab some rings and head to the right so you can encounter your first boss, Egg Wrecker. Now, Egg Wrecker is probably the easiest out of all the bosses since he is the first boss, and what you've got to do is wait for Eggman to stop chuckling so that he can drop his wrecking ball all the way down, so that you can hop on a platform and start either jumping on him or homing attacking him. I recommend jumping since it's quicker, but as long as you're making sure that you're dodging his wrecking ball attack, it should be pretty easy. Once he's defeated, make your way over to the second boss, Egg Claw. There's a couple of things to keep in mind here. Number 1, there's a checkpoint between each boss, so it's okay if you die at any point. And number 2, each boss only takes about 4 hits. Egg Claw is also pretty easy to take down. I usually just spin dash and then jump off the sides of the walls into his cockpit, or you can use the flippers to gain some height and do the same thing. Now, this next boss can be very tricky if you're not careful or fast enough. It's essentially a fight with the Eggmobile. However, now you've got pillars that close in all around you that can insta-kill you if you get crushed. You can get a very easy hit in if, right before the fight starts, you stick to the left or right sides of the screens and then wait for the first 2 pillars to rise so that once they do, you can jump and basically just homing attack him. The pillars are going to close in on each other in one of many different patterns, and you really have to memorize these patterns because if you don't, you're either not going to be able to jump out of the way in time, or you might hit Eggman and then bounce off and then accidentally get crushed because you landed somewhere you shouldn't have landed. On screen right now, I'm showing you how I navigated through some of these patterns. And what I kept in mind throughout the entire process was just look at where Eggman is going, because wherever he heads to, that's going to be your safe corner where you're not going to get crushed. Now, the next boss is also quite difficult, and I really recommend getting as many rings as you can before you get into it, but it's essentially Egg Bouncer in an on-rails section, and that doesn't sound bad at first, but then you realize that a lot of the fight is kind of RNG, and you really have to know every single one of his attacks and his attack patterns to get a hit in. Using the homing attack as many times as possible is a great way to build up speed and also dodge obstacles depending on when you use it. So you've got to look out for 4 different attacks from Egg Bouncer. The first one is when he throws a black and gray Eggmobile. Now, these guys are pretty floaty and very slow, so they're very easy to dodge. The next ones are the gray and blue Eggmobiles, which are very tricky to dodge since they're not as floaty. They drop to the ground very fast, and you've really got to watch your step. The next one after that are the spikes. Those can be pretty easy to dodge since all you have to really do is jump over them, but depending on the other stuff he throws at you while you're doing that, that can be tricky. And the final thing that you have to dodge, which is the hardest in my opinion, is a giant golden Eggmobile, and it is freaking huge, but very floaty, but you just have to watch out for the very bottom, hitbox. He starts out pretty easily by throwing 1 obstacle at a time until you homing attack him, and then once you do, he's going to start throwing 2 obstacles at a time, which can be harder to dodge, but once you do that and homing attack him, he's going to start throwing 3 obstacles at a time, etc. Once he's defeated, get ready for the final boss fight, which is the Death Egg robot. And it's a lot easier than the Sonic 2 Death Egg robot in the sense that you can go in with rings now. However, he still has an insta-kill attack at the very end of the fight, and he takes a lot more damage. So just like Sonic 2, you have to wait till Eggman gets in his Death Egg robot and then arms it before you can start attacking him. Hold jump to avoid his arms and attack his belly, and then homing attack him again. He's going to raise his arms to defend, but once he puts them back down, just do the same thing by jumping and then homing attacking him, and then waiting all the way until he starts flying up into the air. Once in the air, head all the way to the right, wait for his homing reticle to lock in on you, and once he gets a lock on, just bounce to the left a bit so he doesn't just fall on you, and once he's down, do the same thing again. Hold jump, hit his belly, and then homing attack, and repeat. Sometimes when he lands, he's going to try to launch his arms at you, but if he lands all the way on the right side of the screen, you can just spin dash to the left side of the screen and avoid those arms easily. Once you get enough hits in, you'll move on to the second phase of the fight, which is marked by all the flashing red lights and the sirens around you. He's also going to put up an electric barrier, which means that you now can no longer damage him through normal means. So what you're going to want to do is head all the way to the left and wait for him to start stomping. Once he starts stomping, you're going to want to spin dash below the gap that he creates in between the stomps. You really got to time that well, because if you don't, you're going to get stomped on. And once you spin dash, you're going to head all the way over to the right side of the screen. Now he's going to keep stomping and start making his way over back to you, but he's not going to hit you. He's just going to start flying up into the air. After he locks onto you, he's going to drop down and do one of either two different attacks. Number one, he's either going to keep stomping, in which case you're going to have to keep spin dashing between the gaps of his stomps. And number two, he's going to shoot his arm at you. But if he's on the right side of the screen, you can just spin dash all the way to the left side of the screen and dodge it completely, then start making your way over to the center once the arm starts to fall back down. When it drops down to the ground, jump on it 3 times so that it hits him and lowers his electric shield, and now you can jump and then homing attack him and do that twice so you can get 4 hits in and wait for his electric shield to come back up once he retracts his arm. Eventually, he's also going to start shooting some energy balls from his head, which aren't too difficult to dodge, just as long as you're very careful if he starts stomping and doing that, because you're going to have to spin dash underneath the gap right away so you can avoid those shots. He's also going to fire a laser beam, which isn't very difficult to dodge. Just make sure that you jump, because it only affects you once you're on the ground. When you get enough hits in and reach the final phase of this fight, phase 3, he's going to start going berserk. He's going to make one last hurrah, and what the Death Egg robot is going to do is he's going to fly all the way up into the air, and he's going to have his lock-on reticle constantly moving from left to right at a very almost unpredictable rate, and when he drops, he's going to take out the ground below you so that you and him both die. You've really only got 2 different ways to take him out at this point. One's a pretty kind of safe option, and the other one is a bit more difficult. So with the kind of safe option, basically just wait until he locks on. Make sure he doesn't lock on you, obviously, because if he drops on you, it's an insta-death. Once he locks on, jump either left or right slightly, and while he's dropping, midway through the fall, make sure you jump and then homing attack him right away, and that way you'll take him out. Now the second option, which is quite risky, is once he drops and hits the ground after he gets a lock on, you're going to be also paralyzed a bit. You won't be able to move. You'll be stuck on the ground for quite a bit of time, and you'll have a very limited window to jump and then homing attack him, but that is still definitely an option. And once he's taken out, you'll get your first avatar award. Now, unfortunately, I didn't record footage of me unlocking it, but I did record footage of me unlocking the next award, which is the Sonic the Hedgehog costume head. This one's even harder to get than the body because you have to collect all the rings during the ending after the final stage. This can be very difficult because it's an auto-scroller and you have to get all of the rings. You can't miss a single ring. If you miss just one, you're going to have to redo all of this and get all the way back here just to try again. So now I'm going to show you guys the path that I took to collect all the rings at normal speed, and then I'm going to show you guys the footage again in slow motion so you can really get a better idea of where all these rings are and what path to take. So stick to the bottom, get the first 6 rings, then jump to get the next 3, stay at the bottom to get the next 3, hold jump to get those 3, and then hold jump again so you can hop onto that platform and get all 6 of those rings. And if you did that correctly, you'll transform into Super Sonic and get the Avatar Award. Alright, so let's break this all down in slow motion. There's going to be 6 rings at the very bottom. They should be very easy to get. Literally don't do anything, just grab those rings and then move on. Now once you get past this first green platform, you're going to see a sunflower, and after that you're going to want to slightly jump right where that sunflower is to get those 3 rings in the middle. Once you got those rings, move past the platform and then those 2 sunflowers, and you're going to see right by these other red flowers, red and purple flowers at the bottom, 3 rings, so just stick to the ground, should be easy to get. Now, once you get to this sunflower to the next platform, you're going to want to jump as high as you can by holding the jump button so that you can get the next 3 rings. Then you're going to want to drop all the way down to the bottom and then wait for this next sunflower right over here and jump very high again, but you have to be very careful with where you jump because you have to get those 3 rings and also jump high enough to get onto the platform and get the next 3 rings. Now that one is probably the hardest to pull off, but once you've done that, there it is, Avatar Award unlocked, and you're good to go. Now you can be Sonic the Hedgehog. But yeah, I hope this video helped all 4 of you guys still playing Sonic the Hedgehog 4 on an Xbox 360, and let me know if you want to see more guides like this in the future. Thank you for all the support, guys. Peace out.